flank too, because again, these are two very modern militaries. We're very comfortable with them. We know them well. We work with them all the time. So it will obviously have repercussions writ large across the alliance. And I think it's important for people to remember, NATO is a defensive alliance. It's not about posing a threat to Russia or anyone else. It's about defense and only about defense.
I wanted to bring that up. We had Keir Simmons, obviously a great reporter for NBC News. He was reporting, from Madrid, but had interviewed some Russians and even went to a museum that talked about NATO's atrocities committed against people in Europe. Of course, just pure propaganda, pure lies. But underline that, if you will, for our viewers, just in case anybody's confused.
Oh, look, NATO exists as a defensive alliance. It always has, Joe. I mean, it got its start, obviously, in the late 40s with the threat of the Soviet Union. It is still viable and relevant. In fact, you could argue, based on what Mr. Putin has decided to do in Ukraine, NATO is more viable, more relevant, more significant now than it's ever been. And you can see just that, the idea that Sweden and Finland want to join now. I mean, that's a direct outcome of the threats to European security that Mr. Putin has now caused everybody to be concerned about.
Admiral, good morning. Good afternoon to you there in Madrid. And it's not just the addition of Sweden and Finland, which is imminent now, but it's also, as the president and other world leaders announced today, the modernization of NATO, the increased pledges for defense spending on NATO, and the expanding out of their footprint into different countries. So what are the immediate implications of this strengthening of NATO? Because as you know better than anyone, the war in Ukraine is trudging along. It's not going to be a quick solution. There's no easy end to this. So where do you see the state of the war right now and NATO's role in pushing back against it?
Well, so NATO's not involved on the ground in Ukraine. I think you know that, Willie. But there is a significant desire and need to make sure that the eastern flank of NATO is properly protected. The president said we're going to defend every inch of NATO territory, and he announced today that we're going to make some changes to our own force posture, both permanent and rotational, to make sure that the United States is meeting that pledge, meeting that Article 5 commitment inside Ukraine. You're right. The war in the Donbass has pretty much now become a bit of a slog here, a gun battle between the Ukrainians and the Russians. This is territory that they have fought over since 2014. They know the terrain well, and the Russians, for all the advantages that they have in terms of numbers, still have not been able to overcome challenges to logistics, command and control, supply, unit cohesion. They're making some progress, but it's not a lot. I mean, we're talking about kilometer by kilometer, sometimes street by street, because the alliance and because so many other countries around the world, more than 50 now, are continuing to send security assistance to Ukraine so that they can better defend themselves. And that assistance is getting in every single day.
Admiral, finally, let's talk about some news that broke, which also extraordinary for NATO and, again, for European security and American security. And that is, of course, a permanent presence in Poland. Permanent is one of those words that people like me have wanted us to attach to our presence in Poland since 2014. Obviously, there have been concerns with policymakers, but no more. Obviously, the events of the last 6 months have moved the United States to make a pretty transformative move in Poland itself. Tell us all about that.
This is going to be a forward command post of the 5th Corps headquarters, which is already in Europe. That forward command post will now be permanently based in Poland. And you're right, Joe, that is a significant muscle movement. That is something that hadn't happened before. And obviously the Poles are very excited about that. We're very excited about that. But I also think you look at the larger picture of what the president announced, also additional rotational deployments and even permanent deployments of other assets elsewhere. For instance, we're going to add 2 more destroyers to those that are based in Rota, Spain. We're going to add 2 squadrons of F-35 advanced fighter aircraft to the UK. And we're going to start doing heel-to-toe rotations of brigade combat teams inside Romania. There'll be other rotational deployments that will get more aggressive in the Baltic states. So it's a combination of not just permanent basing there in Poland of this command post, but the whole realm of capabilities now that the United States is going to commit for the foreseeable future inside Europe. President Biden recognizes that the security landscape in Europe has changed. Not is changing, not will change, has changed based on what Mr. Putin has done, and he wants to make sure that we're meeting those commitments.
Retired Rear Admiral John Kirby, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. We appreciate it.